Mage Meadowbrook, Swirl the Bearded, A True Friend by Switch Down. It has been a year since the old pillars have returned to Equestria after being in limbo for 1,000 years. All of them had adapted to new modern world, and they sometimes agreed to meet each other from time to time to talk about their new adventures, or at least what they have been going on in the new world. But there is one thing that World has been doing the most. After that he came back to Equestria, he hasn't been on one place at all. He decided to travel around in Equestria to study more about true friendship, and especially to learn more about the new era. Especially now when after being 1,000 years in limbo, World wants to learn more about true friendship and especially about new magic. He is still in contact with Twilight the most, because he sees her as a daughter-like figure, or at least a very true close friend. And sometimes they even writing each other letters back and forward. But during this time, one of the other old pillars, Mage Meadowbrook, has actually been very heartbroken. She hasn't told any of her friends lately that she used to be dating a stallion from Candelot. She was actually very excited to be dating a stallion who was also strong, honest, charming, until she found out he was cheating on her with another mare behind her back. She didn't first even know about it until a friend of her who lives in Candelot flashed mines. He had actually been noticed that Mage's boyfriend was spending some time with another mare, but he found out that they were just friends, and he actually told Mage about that, and she thought the same thing, that they were just friends. Because this particular stallion had a very strong connection with an elite class and one of fashion to business as well, because he was actually a journalist who wrote mostly stories, articles about fashions. And one of those mares he actually spent time with was actually a fashion designer. But when he came back to see Mage, she asked him about it, and he said that just as a friend, and that he has been writing an article about this particular fashion designer, and he even showed it. And he even showed the newspaper with the article in it, and it was the proof enough for her. But she didn't have hasn't much disbelief in him. She still believed that he was faithful, but then, when she came to Candelot to visit them as a surprise, what did she find out then? She saw him at the cafe with the deputy fashion designer. As normal, they thought maybe they're still talking about this another new article, perhaps. But then he saw that they're holding hoops and kissing, and she even overheard saying that he loves her, but she asked what about Mage Meadowbrook? Oh, she's just an old pony. I don't love her anymore. I love you more. That broke her heart, and he didn't even notice. She actually saw them and actually walked up to him and saying right in his face that they were over, and now he will never trust her anymore. After this, she actually had a friend who worked the same magazine like him informed them about this scandal, and of course, what did he do otherwise? His reputation as an honest journalist became fall apart, like a car of house. Many ponies started to believe, they simply want to believe his articles, and he got fired from it. Most of the ponies there to think that he deserved it because what he did to Mage Meadowbrook. She is one of the legendary heroes in equestrian history. He treated her like garbage, and ponies afterwards sending her gifts, flowers, and even letters as sympathy how she felt. Most of them, otherwise, some ponies has been going through the same thing she has, and she was grateful to have so many ponies standing up for her for this once. Even afterwards, Starshbolt, who was not completely unaware about all of this, he was actually on his travels when he came to a small town, reading a newspaper in the morning, saw this article. He couldn't even believe it. He decided to go back home as quickly as possible. He took the first train to the most as closest as possible, then he walked all the way there. He found that Mage Meadowbrook was talking to her descendant Cattail in the clinic. She was surprised to see him, and he informed her what he had been recently found out, and she was just devastated to hear had to remember all of this once again, but of course, she was actually very happy to have his support. They decided to go to Ponyville to see Twilight, for at least for some visit. They haven't seen Twilight in several months, and of course Twilight was just happy to see them both. But she also remembered reading about this particular scandal in the magazine. But she was very open-minded to see how much Mage has been hurt recently, and she told her she will always have help with her. So they decided to stay in Ponyville for about a couple of days, but then the next day, Sakura came to Twilight's castle asking her for help. She needed to help to find some herbs she needed for her potions. But she has been looking throughout the forest, especially the forest around and including every forest after this particular flower or at least herbs, but couldn't find it. Since Mage Meadowbrook was also there, she noticed hearing this, and she asked Sakura what kind of herbs she needs. And Sakura explained what she needs, and Mage Meadowbrook actually explained that she knows exactly what type of herbs and where to find them. And then Starshbolt asked if Mage wanted to help if she needed help to find this particular herb for Sakura. And Mage didn't have any much of mind that, so both of them actually packed some food and left the castle to find these particular herbs. They actually went to every forest, and they both remember from what Twilight told them, this forest is one of the most dangerous areas in Equestria. And of course, they searched for the forest for nearly several hours, but I was unable to find it. When they was sitting down to eat some of their lunch they had been packing down, suddenly a strange sound right behind them, and they saw a Timberwolf. Just one single Timberwolf, and of course Starshbolt used a barrier spell to prevent it to enter. But then suddenly the Timberwolf was gone, just walked away. And it was unusual, he thought. They normally attack, just standing there, looking at them, and just ignoring and walks away. has never been happening before, at least from Twilight or Applejack having been telling her. But after they have been eating, they start searching again this these herbs, and of course they found it. But then, at least 5 timber wolves appeared middle of nowhere around them, surrounding them. And then Mage was actually a little bit further ahead of Starship. And she didn't pay much attention. She was focused on looking for these herbs, and she found it. But then she heard this growling sound from behind her. Saw the Timberwolf was walking up to her. Starship was fighting off some other ones. He didn't notice, and these two had managed to sneak behind him and was about to have attack Mage Meadowbrook. But luckily he saw that, turned around, and used his magic to blast them in pieces, and he ran up to her and managed to teleport them both out of the forest in safety. But then, after they have been teleported outside, they actually went back to Sakura's house, her home, and gave her the herbs that she needed. But then, they noticed Starshwell's one of his hooves was bleeding, and he didn't even notice himself as he has been bitten by one of those timberwolves, and during all this battle, he didn't even notice, he didn't feel the bite. And the Sakura, which the Mage Meadowbrook put on some antibacterial cream on it, and put some bandage, and looked on. Of course, Starshwell was appreciated their help to take care of his injury, but mostly, Mage was actually very appreciated that Starshwell came to her rescue from the Timberwolf. If he had done it, she probably wouldn't be alive anymore. After this, Sakura thanked them both, and they both went back to the castle. And a few days later, they both returned to where they came from. But then, only a few weeks after, Mage actually went to Maidhaven to see an old friend who lives there. He used to run a food store, and actually, somehow it clicked. They fell in love with each other. And she was first against this. She was first didn't want to start a new relationship, was happened recently, but Starshwell and her friends informed her, go for it, but just be careful. If there's something happen, let us know, and we will try to help you. And of course, nothing happened. This particular stallion treated her with perfect condition. He treated her like a princess. He always was honest. When she saw that he was talking to some other mares, she was curious who could they be, but he informed them most of them was actually co-workers or friends from school or his family. Because every time she saw him with another mare, she was afraid that he was going to be using her for his personal gain, but nothing. And of course, that was one of those cases that Mage was feeling being heartbroken again, but he didn't. Only about 2 years later, Mage Meadowbrook actually got married to this particular stallion, and they also moved to Maidhaven to live together. And Starshworld actually informed them both after he has been moving to Maidhaven himself to be a teacher at a local school. Both of them spent a lot of time together, and after that, Mage Meadowbrook informed me that she was having a baby. Starshworld and the other friends was just excited. And of course, Mage actually asked Storswold if he would be like the father, at least the foster grandfather to the baby, and he took it as a great honor. He promised to be there to look after the baby even as a grandparent, and of course, it was just a great honor for him. A few months later, they had a daughter, and of course, Storswold could never spend a lot of time with his adopted granddaughter. He was so excited to be like a grandfather, and he felt a new purpose in his life to teach a new generation all about it. And when she was a bit older, getting older, Storswold told Mage Meadowbrook's daughter all about their adventures in the past, like against the sirens and against the Ponds of Shadow and everything else, and how he saved her mother's life several years before. And of course, she could never be more proud to have Storswold as a grandparent and Mage Meadowbrook as a parent. And that's how Mage Meadowbrook, Swirl the Bearded, and a true friend, the